The phone rang at 3 a.m., and the man on the other end wasn't offering Takahashi a commentator slot or a quiet retirement lunch. He was offering him a chair, a hot, electric chair, to manage the most scrutinized team in Asian sports, solely to pave the way for a savior who isn't ready yet. This is not a promotion, it's a sacrifice, an act of institutional cruelty designed to fail.
Welcome back to 604 News Now, where we cut through the corporate spin of the Yomiuri Giants to expose the true tragedy of the man caught and their succession nightmare. The word circulating within the NPB establishment right now is hujin, unfairness, and it's aimed squarely at Yoshinobu Takahashi, the former manager who finds himself the most attractive option for the most poisonous chalice in Japanese baseball, the bridge manager.
4 years ago, he was unceremoniously dismissed after managing the team to consecutive non-winning seasons, finishing 4th and then 3rd, results deemed unacceptable for the Giants organization. Yet, in a shocking twist, the recent decision by a farm team, Oryx Buffaloes, to poach former Giants farm director Kazuhiro Kuwata for a chief baseball officer role has thrown the Giants' meticulously planned succession line into total chaos, resurrecting Takahashi's candidacy from the ashes, but for the most humiliating of tasks. The official narrative would have you believe that current manager Shinosuke Abe is safe, but anyone watching the internal machinations knows that this season is Yomiuri's last chance under his leadership. Anything less than a yusho is a failure, and the consequence is clear. Abe is out. The primary goal of the organization, the promise whispered in the hallways of the Tokyo Dome, is the eventual return of Hideki Matsui. The Giants brass always intended for Matsui to take the reins, explains one prominent sports journalist, speaking on condition of anonymity. Kuwata was viewed as the most viable immediate replacement for Abe, a manager who could potentially build a dynasty and threaten the ultimate Matsui timeline. Promoting him out of the field and making him CBO was a strategic masterstroke designed to clear the internal field of serious contenders, leaving only transitional figures. This is where Takahashi steps back into the spotlight, not as a leader of men, but as a political shock absorber. Imagine the psychological toll, being asked to return to the organization that abruptly fired you, knowing full well that your job is not to win the championship, but merely to stabilize the ship, absorb the inevitable public backlash, and keep the seat warm for the team's true hero. They ruined him once. Now they want him to clean the sewage so their golden boy can walk on dry land, laments a former Giant scout. It's the definition of institutional cruelty. But here is the critical counter-argument often leveled by the Giants' faithful. Why Takahashi? Why not simply wait for Matsui now if the situation is so dire? This is where the hard data and the strategic timeline come into play, proving that Takahashi's sacrifice is a calculated, necessary evil for the Giants' 2027 grand plan. We have to look at the numbers. The year 2027 is the target, because that is when key foreign acquisitions, most notably the reliable reliever Robert Martinez, will officially qualify as domestic players under the NPB system, dramatically improving roster flexibility. Furthermore, 2027 is the projected peak window for the current crop of promising young talent, specifically guys like Ryuki Tsumori and Hikaru Kajiya. Most importantly, the Giants are banking on external developments. If the Hanshin Tigers' key young stars, namely Kaito Saiki and Teruaki Sato, opt for the posting system and move to MLB, the competitive gap between the two rivals shrinks significantly, creating a perfect, less contested entry point for Matsui. To achieve this ideal 2027 launch, the Giants cannot afford a lame duck manager like Abe dragging the team through 2025 and 2026, creating further institutional rot. Nor can they have Matsui enter immediately, facing the immediate pressure and toxic residual effects of the post-Abe collapse. They need someone respectable, someone who has spent years outside the organization, like Takahashi, who has been an excellent analytical commentator, visibly updating his baseball philosophy and understanding of modern analytics. He's learned more in the broadcast booth than he did in his entire playing career, confirms one prominent analyst who regularly works with Takahashi. His baseball IQ is sharp, updated, and ready. He just lacks the political power to resist being used. The climax of this tragedy is the unspoken demand. Takahashi must be successful enough to keep the fans interested and the young players developing, yet unsuccessful enough in terms of winning the championship that the demand for Matsui remains at a fever pitch. He is being asked to manage for the sake of the man who will replace him. He is the ultimate interim leader, a 2-year sacrifice designed to bridge the chasm between Abe's inevitable failure and Matsui's glorious, perfectly timed arrival. Many argue that Takahashi should simply refuse this poisoned cup, stand on his dignity, and remain in the comfortable, respected world of commentary. But that ignores the deep, almost spiritual loyalty that binds Giants lifers like Takahashi. He will accept the mission, not out of ego, but out of a deep sense of responsibility to the organization, and perhaps to fulfilling the legacy of his mentor, Shigeo Nagashima. His return would be painful, tragic, and utterly ruthless from the Giants' perspective, but strategically, it is the only move left to ensure the perfect Matsui landing in 2027. This cycle of organizational brutality is the price of keeping the throne warm for Godzilla. If you agree that the situation surrounding Takahashi is the most ruthless example of institutional strategy we've seen in NPB this decade, hit that like button, share this video, and subscribe to 604 News Now for more hard-hitting commentary. And tell us in the comments, do you think Takahashi deserves this brutal fate, or is this a necessary evil to finally bring Godzilla home in 2027?